At issue this Sunday morning, spending responsibly, the strategies you can use this holiday shopping season to avoid going into debt, and reducing the burden of property taxes. An expert shares ways homeowners can save money. And saying goodbye. Longtime NBC 10 anchor Tracy Davidson anchored her final broadcast this past week. But before she did, she sat down with me to take a look back at the stories she did that made the biggest impact.
NBC 10 at Issue starts now.
I'm Lauren Make. Welcome to NBC 10 at Issue. The holiday shopping season is now off and running. We've been through Black Friday and Small Business Saturday. Cyber Monday is still on deck for tomorrow. A new poll from Deloitte shows shoppers plan to spend 4% less between Black Friday and Cyber Monday this year. That's a reversal from the past 4 years when people said they planned to spend more than the previous year. Shoppers said economic concerns and the higher costs of living were the reasons that they're cutting back. Meantime, the National Retail Federation predicts this shopping season will set a new record, topping $1 trillion for the first time. There are ways to shop and be financially responsible at the same time. And for more, we're joined by financial advisor Jamie Hopkins. He is the CEO of Bryn Mawr Trust. Jamie, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, it's great to see you again. Thanks for having me on.
So we are at the beginning of December. So we really have the whole month ahead of us. And it's a month where folks can sometimes get into trouble. There is a lot that we want to be able to do in this month. So let's just sort of set the stage. And with the whole month ahead of you, what are some of the things that you would do at the beginning right now?
Yeah, so one thing I think at the beginning of this month is to break things into what I'll call buckets of how you might spend money. And there's one that kind of creeps up on people, so I call it gifting, right? Then you have your gathering and then giving. And they're really three, although two of them sound similar. But the gathering one, I think, is the one that creeps up on people. You might be driving more to see relatives, holiday parties, right? Getting together for happy hours after work. And all of a sudden, you're buying a little bit more at those things, right? Even just the travel associated with it. So I do think your normal expenses tend to jump up in December over other months, just from eating out and all these other things. Even when you're shopping, you might get coffee while you're shopping. That's another $5, $7 that you weren't planning for that day. So thinking about how do I increase my normal spending and then deal for these other two, which are all the gifts I want to give people. That's really where we're going to get in trouble here if we overbuy in that bucket. But then the giving part too. I went to 2 grocery stores today looking for something and checked out twice, and both times they're like, hey, do you want to give $5 for the local food bank? That adds up really quickly too. If you're going every week, that could be hundreds of dollars in a month. So thinking about these 3 buckets, giving some money that you feel that you can spend in them, and then sticking to this budget is going to be really, really crucial. A lot of people don't like that term budgeting, but I think in this month, maybe even more so than the whole year, it is really crucial because if we overspend, we leave ourselves in January with all that pain and stress about how are we going to pay for this.
Yeah, you can stick to a budget, but if the budget was probably not realistic for you in the beginning, then you're still going to be in trouble. How do you figure out what you can really afford?
Yeah, absolutely. So one good way to look at that is look at what you spent last month. Like, that's a very good starting point. I'm always amazed that most people have no idea what they really spend in 1 month. What they kind of know is they get about X amount from their paycheck, and most of that's gone by the end of the month. So they're thinking, I spend about what my paychecks are. But it's probably a little bit more nuanced than that. You might have one-off expenses, different months. And so really take a first look at what am I going to just spend this month? And then do I have savings that I can spend for gifts or giving? And if I don't, then what am I going to do to, actually afford this, which means I'm probably going to be using credit cards. And how much do I reasonably feel like I could pay back in January, in February, and March? Because what you don't want to get in the habit of doing is spending an extra $2,000 you don't have, and then carrying that debt with you for the entire year, because then you're really spending like $2,400, which is very different. And it snowballs and you never really get out of this debt situation, which does plague millions of Americans. We just get stuck in debt and can't dig ourselves back out.
If you are going to be using credit cards for something, is there a best way to approach it in terms of use credit cards for this and not this, or use them at the beginning of the month and not the end of the month? What's the most responsible way to use them in this period?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of differences of opinions on this. So I don't know that there is exactly a best way to do it. A little bit of what works for you. So there are people who say, look, use cash for holiday shopping. Figure out what your budget is. You're going to spend $500. Get cash out, use that, and then you likely will limit yourself to that $500. But as you and I were talking about before, maybe you only spent $4 and there's an extra $100 in there, then you're probably going to use up the whole extra $100.
If it's there, a lot of people are like, well, there's still money left in the envelope, so I'm going to spend it.
Yeah. But it does happen with credit, and that's why credit cards have been so popular. It's so easy. We tap it, we move on. We don't have to worry about it today. We leave that problem for ourselves in the future. So it really is about setting a budget and sticking to it. There are people that will go and say, hey, look, I'm only going to use this for the first couple weeks of my shopping, right? Maybe go out on Black Friday and the first couple weeks, and I'll use it then. But then I'm going to put it away, right? Like, I'm not going to go out shopping again with my credit card, so this creep of additional purchases doesn't kind of keep moving upwards. So I think that's a good strategy. But our credit cards are tied to so many automatic things now. I think this is going to get more and more challenging for consumers to manage this. I saw on Amazon, right, on the TV screen, you can now buy things with your remote control on the screen and it ships to you, right? Like, it's easy. That's really easy. Like, you're not even thinking, I have to get out my credit card and tap something. You can just hit the OK button on your screen and it's going to ship to you. So it's going to take a lot more control and discipline than it ever has before. I think the other part, though, is buy things that give you happiness and that you think are going to give the people who you're gifting to happiness and joy. If it's stressing you out, be creative. Don't go buy something. Offer them lunch or brunch later in the future. I think we've talked about this before. I think that's a great way to spread out this cost, is if it's your sister, say, hey, let's go to brunch. She's probably not going to brunch December 15th, so you can then deal with that bill in January or February when it actually comes up. It does allow you to spread out some of this gifting instead of just buying gift cards or other things.
What if you are just feeling real stressed already right now, and you just, quite frankly, want to spend less this year? You said, look at what you spent last year. What if you say, I really can't spend that much this year? Are there ways that you can really just pare that down?
Yeah, and this is something I think a lot of Americans should decide to do, and people here in Philadelphia, is inflation was high the last couple of years. The cost of goods are very expensive, right? Credit card debt has been rising again because, cost of living is not keeping up with it. So it's okay to tell yourself, it's not the right thing for me to do to spend this year. What I would tell people then is also to reach out to the family or friends that they feel that social pressure of spending on, and just be upfront and honest. Say, hey, look, I'm cutting back on gifts this year. I hope you understand. And they might have the same relief, right? They're like, oh, I'm so thankful that you said this because I really didn't want to buy a lot of stuff this year. So I would say be proactive on that so you relieve that social pressure, because a lot of this is, I feel like I need to get somebody something. I hear that all the time. Like, I feel like I need to buy my nieces and nephews something. You don't need to, right? You either want to and can afford, or have the conversation that you just don't want to do it this year. And that doesn't mean having to say, hey, look, I'm in debt. It can just say, look, it's been a lot this year. I don't really want to spend as much money. And people are very forgiving and understanding of that, and I think it relieves a lot of stress.
Have the conversation. All right, Jamie Hopkins, thank you for having this conversation with us. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.